You are not Native American. In the United States, there was a time where being biracial was not accepted the way it is now.
African Americans aren't necessarily ashamed of their African heritage. We just don't have access to it. We're not dogging our African origins just because we've had to learn how to be proud of our Black American current reality. But this is all we've had for half a millennia. We are not always accepted by the diaspora or our African cousins. We take pride in our culture that exists here and our ancestors that existed here in the last 400 to 600 years of history here. Damned if you do or damned if you don't. We can't just start repping African countries and customs, right? But then if we're too proud about our Black American heritage, we're ashamed of our African culture. No. Y'all know this. Y'all make jokes about this. So literally, what would you have us do? And I'm not really asking because this is what we're doing.
This conversation is for Black Americans. Why do you claim to be an Aboriginal American Indian, Indigenous to America, when in fact we are descendants of West Africans? From the time I was born until currently, there have been several different instances or groups that have come out and say, you know, we're the real Israelites, we're the real Jews, we're Egyptians, we're kings and queens. And it just proves the type of erasure that the colonial people did to us in America. We are in this country that is the world's sphere, and then Black Americans became the world stage. And so I think we over time had to feel the need to be greater than our story. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with our story and us existing in the Americas because of slavery, but that's not the start of our story. And I think you guys are giving that slavery aspect too much power, so you feel the need to be something greater than that. A lot of these claims stem from the fact that there were people who discovered, I use that term very loosely, there were people who explored the American continents far before Columbus. Abu Bakr II of the Malian Empire, he sent out a voyage of over 2,000 ships to go across the Atlantic, and they never returned. And that's how Mutamanta became that emperor, the richest man in the world. Scandinavians also landed in Canada in the North American continent 2 centuries before Columbus. So people have explored the Americas way before the Europeans discovered the Americas, but they did not settle here. People often talk about the slave ships, and there is nothing more documented by Europeans than their most lucrative entity ever, which was the transatlantic slave trade. It is documented in Africa. The kingdoms that also interacted with Europeans have oral and written history of them capturing and selling slaves to the Europeans. It was so lucrative for them that all of the slaves that were bought on the ships were backed by insurance policies. And some of the insurance companies we know today, like AIG, exist because they were there to insure slaves. Some of the people who captured slaves were throwing slaves off of the ships in order to gain money because they knew some of them are going to die anyway. So let's just kill them so we can get their insurance payment. And these things are heavily documented. It's not, especially when Native Americans are alive and well. I think as Black people, if you, a member of the colonized group in America, add to the erasure of Native Americans, it is the biggest slap in the face, especially because Native Americans document their history so well, orally and written. You can go to a reservation today and go to a Native American library. You can read firsthand accounts of how they lived pre the Columbian period and how they lived once they encountered the Europeans and once Africans came in and encountered with them. Now, it may be true that some of us have trace amounts of Native American DNA or large amounts of Native American DNA, because in the South, when the natives were captured, they were working side by side with the enslaved Africans, and some of them procreated. That's a fact. That's not anything I would ever deny. Who you are, there's power and strength in what we've built and developed here. There's nothing, for me, being a member of the diaspora, there's nothing stronger and more beautiful in every single country that we exist in than the cultures that we've made, the food that we've created, the music we've created, and the fact that we're still here.
A lot of people don't know that America tends to cover up the history of its Afro-Native Americans. Okay, so the Native American depiction that they mainly show in the mainstream is often a straight-haired lighter complected, almost Euro representing person. However, the kinky haired black beings, we're also Native Americans. I am Native American in the flesh. So make sure you guys are tapping into your history, know where you really come from, know what land you originate from. You know, Ashe, Aseo.
Being black is not exclusive to being African, contrary to popular beliefs.
She's right. All throughout Southeast Asia, along with Melanesia in Oceania, as well as Australia, there are indigenous black peoples. In the Philippines specifically, we have the Aita, the Ita, the Negritos, or the Agta, or the Artas. They settled the islands long before the Austronesian groups came. Some have assimilated into Austronesian culture and society, and also intermixed and intermarried, while others kept their ethnic identity independent. But please try not to diminish their ethnic identity and history by referring to them as Africans. They are indigenous to these islands. It's believed that they first settled the Philippines 30,000 years ago. Austronesians, on the other hand, only arrived on the islands about 4,500 years ago.
Hi, King. So, King says, take a DNA test. It should reveal your heritage. We now have the ability to know our heritage. There is no excuse to remain in a class system. So, King, I've always known my heritage. If you go to my page, you'll see where I uploaded my family tree. And it'll show you that I have family members that exist before the before the U.S. was called the U.S. So, no, I know my family lineage because of oral tradition, also because I have all of their records, along with some of my other cousins who have taken it upon ourselves to continue passing down our history. However, I have done a DNA test. Again, you would have saw this if you went to my page. I have a few of them uploaded, and I discuss this in detail why these tests, when you go to companies like 23andMe and also Ancestry.com, show you a very whitewashed version of your full genetic code.
This is hilarious. This person says, embrace your African culture. Don't be ashamed of it. Fun fact, Black Americans have zero African culture. We don't have any African dishes that were passed down from grandma. We don't have any oral traditions of descending from tribes in Africa. We don't have any African dances, any African customs, but all of the customs that Black Americans have, you can tie to indigenous tribes of the Americas. Riddle me that. I mean, for those of us who are even Pan-African and wear onks and daishikis every February, they have no African culture. They're just kind of cosplaying as something that makes them feel empowered. So, faceless troll, the only reason why I'm responding to you is to highlight the fact that Native Black Americans have zero African culture. And when we look through our genealogy and search for an African ancestor, we don't find any.
Look, if you want to claim that you 100% indigenous to the Americas, that's cool, that's you. But me, I'm Geechee down. So my people from Charleston and Georgia, the low country of Georgia, by way of Sierra Leone, by way of Senegal. And if we talking my Chesapeake family from Virginia, by way of Madagascar. I know my family history, so I can't even hop on that train with y'all.
So what I did when I took my DNA test, I got my raw DNA data, and I uploaded it into some third-party software sites like GED Match and DNAgenics. And there, you'll be surprised, there's a bunch of different calculators, right? Some of them look at your newest DNA and they compare it to other populations in modern time, right? And then some of the calculators look at a mix of modern and ancient, which is actually a better way of understanding your migration patterns if you're really into understanding how to read your raw DNA data. I happen to have a degree in biology. I am not a geneticist, but I would say that I have a foundational understanding of how DNA and epigenetic works. But without further ado, I would like for you to explain to me why I'm mostly Indian, Mediterranean, and then African. Also, Northeast Asian, Southeast Asian, Papuan, Caucasian, Siberian, Western European, and American Indian. I thought that we came from West and Central Africa. This shows you a different version of the version that they show you on those commercial sites, and it gives you a better understanding of the migration patterns. I'm sure you're probably wondering why African is like that low, right? But when you look at it in relation to North Africa, also what they call the Middle East, then it actually makes more sense, right? That a lot of us have a lot of North African ancestry. And imagine that though, right? Imagine us being told that, no, you guys just came only, and I'm not saying that this didn't happen, but you only came via the transatlantic slave trade from, those slave ports, whatever, only to find out that I'm mostly North African. Do you know why? I do. But if you want to take a gander and try to figure it out with me, I can walk this through with you. I also have a master's in education, and I do a lot of Socratic questioning techniques. If you think I'm asking because I don't know, I'm trying to get you to think, not me. But I really hope that helps. So yeah, how can I be all of these things when my family, and I'm not mixed at all, has been in this country being Black, being Negro, being mulatto, even sometimes being Indian. Yet, these DNA results are telling me something different. Do you know why? It's a possibility we've been lied to. Also, it's okay to identify with that heritage. However, I think it's disingenuous to sit there and say, oh, I'm Congolese, and you don't know what it means to be Congolese. What tribe in Congo? You said Benin or whatever, right? But do you practice their traditions? Do you understand their culture? Have you ever set foot, in the Congo? It's just as weird as me all of a sudden saying, oh, I'm Mexican. Why? Because we share some of the same genetics. Meanwhile, I've never grew up in a Mexican family. I like tortillas and stuff. Does that mean because I eat tacos all the time that I'm Mexican? No. That's just me, though. I think it's very weird to cosplay other people's cultures, especially when you're so far removed from that culture. Why is it so bad to just be American? I think it's kind of a shame that our ancestors fought so hard to be included in a place that we helped build, if not built, to be honest, to sit here and say, oh, no, I'm Congolese. Now, we're American. And if you're Congolese, fine, go back to the Congo, whatever. Stay here, practice. I don't care. But as a whole, to call us African American when we're so many things is absolutely weird. To me, it gives white supremacist ideology. But hey, what do I know?